tired lady. So I'll, with not much more ado, can I have the next slide, please? So I've been asked to speak about 10 days. Next slide, please. I've been asked to speak about 10 days versus 100 days in family counseling. So these are just some of the things which I hope we will learn in this 10 minutes presentation. What's the role of sharing decision making versus we doctors, we, and I say we because I'm sure I'm one of them as an oncologist, where we just tell the patients that this is what is good for you, maybe you just got to do it, and we don't even say that to the patients, we usually say to the family members. So what's the importance of shared decision making? What is the and where do we stand with that ethically? And then I'll show you whatever evidence I was able to gather with the help of my colleague Dr. Seema from Manipal. Next slide, please. So, right in the beginning, let me just emphasize the fact that the care which we give to our patients has to be also given to the caregivers. They have so many problems which they face. And since we're talking about this debate of 100 days versus 10 days, you'll even imagine that if they are having this patient who is being declared end of life, and I'm coming to that in a minute, what's end of life, that they have so many needs, and if they have so many unmet needs, and they're not just physical, they may be housework, they may be transportation, but they are also psychological support, physical support. They feel so negative even up when the patient dies. There are social needs. Next slide, please. And all these are things which we need to take care of them. So as many of us are aware, we used to say last 48 hours. End of life is not anywhere the last 48 hours. It is about when the physician realizes that this patient is in a progressive state of decline. So as Dr. Nandini showed us, it's not on the up phase, but it's now on the down phase. But having said that, it's not about days, it could be weeks, and it could even be months. And therefore, once the physicians realize that, okay, now I think this patient is not going to recover, that's when we all need to start concentrating. Next slide, please. On the family as well as the patient. And we give a lot of importance sometimes to the family only to tell them some bad news. But we also need to realize that through this trajectory, now this trajectory possibly, yeah, I don't know if you can see me with my cursor, but if this is 100 days, and that's where the oncologist has decided that this patient needs chemotherapy, it could be targeted, it could be metronomic, but it's going on. But that's where if we had to come in and our patient and family came to know who we were, that we were supportive care, that we were giving them the psychological, social, and spiritual support for patient and caregiver, then as we go down the trajectory, when we come to the few days which are left or a week which is left, if they know us and the rapport building has taken place, not only while the active treatment is going on, but when it has been stopped, then next slide, please. If we go through this trajectory of illness, we'll realize that as the decline is becoming irreversible, dependency is increasing more and more. How much can the family members do, and how much do we need to support the patient and the family members as we are going as the patient is going through this trajectory? Next, please. Yeah, I think, can you just keep going? Next. Yes. No, go back one, please. Okay. So just to say that these are all things which are going to come up. What's the futility? Is it time to stop? That's where we are going to be having discussion with only family members. But are they capable of taking this discussion forward? The son is going to be blamed by the rest of the village if he says, no, I think my papa doesn't require the treatment anymore. They're going to say that you are saving the money for yourself. Well, it's not true at all. But are we going to support that son, or maybe the spouse, maybe it's the sister or the brother who's doing the decision making in medical futility, in decisions whether resuscitation is required or not? Is there a need for palliative sedation if the patient is having, like we were talking about breathlessness with Dr. Nandini in the last session, or it's severe pain? And if you're giving very high doses of morphine, and will they consider that as palliative sedation? Will they think that this is euthanasia? Next slide, please. So these are all some of the issues which come up. And what we're looking at as palliative physicians is not just adding days to life, but we're looking at the quality of life, and we're looking at patients and their families, and it's through this whole trajectory. So maybe there itself we're coming a little closer to that answer of 10 days. Next slide, please. Versus 100 days. So what is quality of life? It is what does the individual consider as their satisfaction or happiness. It's not what the doctor considers is the best thing for the patient. It is what does that individual, patient or family, consider as satisfaction or happiness. It is a subjective perception and its impact on daily life, which is not just physical but psychological and social. Next, please. So, and quality of death. So, okay, we're talking of end of life. So now death has become inevitable. So, what is that good death? Is it something in the ICU? Is it something in the ward but surrounded by all tubes and patients only allowed in the visiting hours? What's happening in the COVID situation where my father-in-law is admitted right now in a hospital, but only one daughter and the rest of the 4 kids are not even allowed to see him. Neither are any of us. So quality of life and quality of death. So if we look at some of these components of a good death, yes, we want good pain and symptom management as Dr. Nandini was just talking about, but we want clear decision making. We want to prepare the family and the patient for the death. We want the patient to feel that he has completed all the issues that he had to do, whether it is a will or whether it is meeting someone who is a loved one, or maybe it's a going on a darshan to some temple. And the family members may or may not feel confident to take him over there. So it's affirmation of the whole person. Next, please. And therefore, this is just an algorithm which again tells us how important it is to have open, early, and repeated discussions. And these discussions have to be with the patient, the family, the physician, and anybody else who's there in the support of this family, patient, and family, which includes communication, communication, and communication. But it also might look at withholding certain treatments. It may look at withdrawing certain treatments in the hospital, which even could be withdrawal of the ventilator. But you can think of how much discussion is required for this. And again, if we had to come in earlier, possibly once the rapport building was taking place, next slide please, between the patient, family member, and physician, that it would become much easier to give that particular patient a good death surrounded by the family members. But yes, we all know as doctors, we have to follow principles of ethics. So is doing good only treating, or is doing good withholding some treatments where the toxicities way outweigh the benefits? And of course, this is only going to happen with good communication. Communication with whom? We have this tendency not to speak to patients. So we speak to the family members, and the patient is outside the door wondering, are they signing my death warrant? And actually, it's just the family who's saying, I don't know what to do. And it is incumbent on the doctor to support the family along with the family members in these cardinal principles of ethics. So we do good if we don't do harm. And we will only do no harm if we look always at the toxicities of our treatment along with the benefits and try to put it all together. And we all know justice. How much resources do we have in this country, and how many patients do we need to give the benefit to? Next, please. So in our country today, in this lung cancer symposium, where should we practice end of life care? Who should make that decision? Should the patient be allowed to take his decision? It's his life. It's the person who is going is the patient. Should he be or her allowed to take the decision? And what happens to the caregiver? Suppose the caregiver says no more treatment. Is he going to be hauled into the court? Do we have a legal system which tells us that yes, what you did is ethically right? Are we anywhere close to that today? I'll be telling you a little bit about that. What's the role of the family, and what is end of life? Next, please. So these are all dilemmas. Let's just say that it's not easy. In our country, we do not have much to support us. But if we talk about advanced care planning, where we actually have that discussion, repeated discussions between patient, family, and healthcare professionals, maybe that is called advanced care planning, and maybe we're getting somewhere there. Because though the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare has not come up with anything great till today, we have to accept that the Supreme Court had given us the chance to create advanced directives, which has to be put down and signed by the patient. However, it's still a very complicated process, and it is undergoing a lot of changes with the help of the palliative care professionals along with legal and other people. Next, please. And this has to be respected by the medical professionals. So coming to families now, few papers I'm going to show you. Because of lack of time, I can't be showing you. There are many papers out there. But these are just some of the things which I hope if you will be able to get hold of these slides, you'll have all these references showing that patients want that communication. Patients want to be told that it's the end of life of my family. They want that honest and complete information. They want to be able to call the doctor whenever they need help. They want to be able to express their emotion. They want to have that integrity preserved, and they want their religious and faith beliefs also, next please, to be preserved. Therefore, this is again another paper, and though I'm sorry that some of these are pediatric papers because that's my area of interest, they are as applicable for adults as of children. They want pain relief, continuity of care. They want us to be still around once the patient has passed away. Next, please. And though this is a very busy slide and I'm not going to ask you to read it right now, neither am I going to read it. I'm just going to tell you that this is the amount of work which is going on, looking at families and the needs that families have to be supported through this process. So there is Kissane there, there's Wright there, there's Peter Hudson there, there's Kirchhoff and Fast there. They all have had a lot of work which has been done looking at what are the preferences.
Bad to interrupt, but it's last minute to go.
Yeah, okay. So next one, please. So these are some of the reference which I put up over there. Next, please. And this is just a very interesting paper which I hope that you will go through. Again, telling us how all family members say, we need help, please give us help. And some of the models of this caregiver support is there in that paper, COPE Focus Call. But they also say that it should be culturally and language adapted so that it helps anybody in their individual cultural settings. Next, please. And again, this was a very interesting paper which I come across, which talked about medicalization of dying. So I won't go into the details because there's hardly any time. Next. So this is our study which we did looking at early intervention in lung cancer. And again, the references are there for you to see that though we did not get too much of a result, we definitely found that early intervention was better. Next. And again, when you look into bereavement support, you realize that once the patient and family have learned that you are there to support them regardless, then when the patient is no more, then you will help them to accept the reality, go through the pain of the loss, adjust, and move on with their life. While they are looking backwards, they are still moving forwards. So I hope in that very short time which was given to me, I'm able to convince all of you that let us bring palliative care early, definitely at 100 days, and give us the opportunity to not only support the patient, but to help the family members also, because it's way more difficult on the family than it is on the patient. Thank you very much.